What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, back for another episode of the Super Smash Brothers tutorial. In this episode we're going to be covering jump attacks, canceling jump attacks when you hit the ground, and double or triple or however many jumps you want in a row. So let's start with the double, triple, however many jumps you want in a row because it's very easy, and if you're using the side scroller template like I am, then you can actually just change a variable that Unreal has for you. You can code your own functionality for it, but for the purposes of where we're at in the tutorial and what you're probably looking to do, this should be fine for now. So the easiest way to do this is literally just go to your default character. So if you were following the tutorial that we were doing, this is where we put the naked skin color mannequin thing on. So it's in side scroller CPP, blueprints, side scroller character, which is right here. You have to scroll down to the character section. So it's about halfway down if you have all of them extended. There's a lot of things here. You don't have to open the full blueprint editor. Just scroll down. It's quite far down. Past collision, past tags, right next to cooking and clothing. Which I just realized makes it sound like house chores. But anyway, you go to character, jump max count, the very bottom variable here. You make this as many times as you want. Basically what this does, code side if you're interested, is it checks if you press the jump button, and if your jump button is less than your amount of jump max counts and you haven't yet touched the ground, then increment the amount of jumps that you currently have. And since the amount of jumps that you currently have is less than the jump max count, you'll be able to jump again. It's that simple. So that's all you need to do if you want multiple jumps. So you can see I can jump once, I can jump again. And then I can jump once, I can jump again, but I can't jump a third time. Okay? That's simple enough. Let's get into jump attacks. Even crouch attacks will follow the same logic. I didn't implement them for this just because I didn't feel like it was necessary, but I went ahead and added a state for it. So this is going to be a strictly Unreal tutorial. Or a blueprint slash state machine in here and MVP tutorial. You won't need to actually do any code to make this work unless you want to. You definitely can do it in code, but honestly, it's, in my opinion, it's just way easier to do it in the state machine. So what you're going to need is an animation, which I've just made really fast because I want an animation without root motion, and then I found one that I liked on mixamo.com, which I have a how to get free assets from mixamo.com tutorial, which you can check out in the icon in the top right now. You don't need to go to that if you have animations, but if you don't have any animations that you want to use for your game, you can go to that and just see how to download them really quickly. Okay, so I have this crazy animation, which I'll show you what it actually looks like. Whoops. So it's actually like him doing this sword spin jump thingy. Anyway, I just went ahead, and this is something good to know, not necessarily something I plan on covering in the tutorial, but we're here now. If you ever have root motion like this, where your animation carries your mesh, but your mesh doesn't go along with it, this is what it'll look like if you don't lock it, by the way. Oh, excuse me. So your character will move in the animation and then return back to their default state. Now you can enable something called root motion, which allows you to actually move your mesh with the animation, but honestly, let's not do that. There's a lot of reasons not to do that. There's some good reasons to do it, so it's definitely not always a bad thing, but I'm not interested in doing that right now. Especially because these aren't like final animations, so you never know which ones you're going to have root motion on, things like that. It gets a little bit tricky. But anyway, if you ever want to just disable root motion, it'll make your guy look a little weird because he won't rotate or move, but it gets the job done. And for some animations, it actually won't make much of a difference, and it'll just save you the headache. But you can go into the animation you specifically want to enable or disable it for, and then you can go ahead down to root motion, just scroll down, and then hit force root lock, which will automatically take care of this problem for you. Okay, so that's just a little side note, not really related, but that's why this attack that I have looks a little bit funky, to be honest. But yeah, it's supposed to be like a little sword thing, but I just used it because it's a jump attack and good enough. Okay, so now that we've covered all that, make sure you have your animation. You can change the speed here if you want. Make it super slow. Or make it really fast like I did. And then basically the rest of this is going to be working in the state machine. So if you weren't following any of the tutorials, you might not know where the state machine is, so I'll help you get to that. Just go ahead and go to your animation graphs. Your anim graph is what it's called by default. You can double click on it, it'll bring you to the state machine, and then you can double click on the default state machine. And then there won't be anything in here other than entry, unless this is from a template or something you've already edited in the past, but you can just go ahead and right click to add any states you want, and these states are just what animation is basically going to play. So entry is where you start, it'll automatically bring you to your first state. So that should pretty much always be idle or some sort of entrance animation. Then from here, you have these rules that determine which state you're going to. So in this case, we're doing jump attacks or crouch attacks. Again, I didn't actually explicitly implement that, but all you do is just literally drag from one to the other, and it makes a transition rule. So these rules determine what animation you're going to be playing. So for example, in the last episode, we went from idle to basic attack by making sure that this rule transition was saying the basic attack used. So basically I pressed the button that would use this attack, which is Q in my case. And this is something new that we're adding, so don't worry about this now. I'll explain that in literally about 2 minutes. So that's how these rules work. Now what we're going to do is add a few more rules that help further define the functionality that we want. So we don't want to necessarily do an air attack that has the same animation as the attack that we use on the ground. That would look weird, right? So if we have this guy right here, and we press Q and do an attack, well, you see his legs are definitely in his standing stance. So if I were to use this in the air, which I can't just because of the functionality I set up, but it would look really weird, right? His legs would just, instead of falling, would just be straight on the ground. So you probably don't want to do that anyway, plus you just might want to add different air attacks because your regular attacks might not be good in the air, especially in a Super Smash Brothers game. And then you might want things like recovery, and anyway, basically the point is, if you want other attacks, right, that aren't related to being on the ground, like such as jumping, or when you're in a specific state, such as crouching, all you really have to do is have a boolean that you keep track of. Now, for in the air and jump attack specifically, if you're using the side scroller template again, the is in air boolean comes default. It will be included in the template, and it will be handled correctly already on Unreal's side. So you won't have to code anything, you won't have to edit anything. You'll just see this variable here in the blueprint called is in air. And by the way, I'm in default and in BP. I should have mentioned that earlier. But if you don't know how to get to that, go to side scroller, blueprints, whoops, hold up, mannequin. I always forget where it's at. Mannequin, animations, here it is. Third person and in BP. Now for us specifically, I made a new character in the last episode or 2 episodes ago. So I'm not using the mannequin one, I'm using, whoops, hold up, default and in BP right here. So just go to an animation blueprint. If you want to make a new one, just add new, animation blueprint right here. Anyway, that's where we're at. Sorry about that, just wanted to make sure that was clear. So, yeah, so here we go. If we want to make it so that when you're jumping, you do this animation, which by the way, to play an animation on a state, you can literally go here to your asset browser and just drag them in. Like I've already done it here, but you can replace these animations this simply. You just drag it in, and drag the connection between. See, now I have a different air attack. It's that simple. That's actually going to be my crouch attack, but there you go. All you have to do is, in the transition rule, make sure you can go from the state you're trying to go to, such as idle, or if you have a jump animation, which you probably should, then go from your jump to your jump attack. Your rules are going to be as simple as they were in the last episode for the attack part. Just basically, have I pressed the attack button? That's what this evaluates to. Has used basic attack is meaning, have I pressed the basic attack button, which in my case is Q. If I have, I want to go ahead and say is in air, and if both of these things evaluate to true, then do this attack. If you're doing this from a jump attack, like for example, or excuse me, if you're doing this from like a jump state, if you had a state that was jump, and he has a different animation, then you can go directly to the basic jump attack, and you won't actually need to check if they is in air or not, right? Because if you're in this jump state, the thought is you're already is in air, right? This Boolean is always true. So you won't need to explicitly check when going to it that you're in the air. However, if you're like me, where you just go from idle to your basic jump attack, which could be the case, because say you're playing Super Smash Brothers, you do your recovery attack, well, you instantly go to is in the air, right? For example, I'm thinking of like Marth or Ike specifically, use an attack, they end up using the same attack that they do on the ground in the air. So that might be something you want to check for, if you want to check for the amount of jumps you can use or things like that. So that's important to note. You don't always have to do that, but it could be useful to keep track of this variable, depending on how you want your functionality. Okay, as far as, so that's basically how you're going to get attacks that are in the air. And if, for example, you don't want different states fighting over each other, like if you can go to basic attack and basic jump attack from the same state like I can here, you can go ahead, whoops, my bad, you can go ahead and add this little Boolean, is in air, not, to your default ground attack, making sure you're not in the air. Otherwise, if you are, it won't go into this state, because again, we don't want to necessarily use the same attack on the ground as we do in the air. So you can just go ahead and check that you're not in the air, or just, again, ignore the Boolean and just use the jump state and don't allow the jump state to go to the basic attack. Right, it's pretty simple, it's not bad, but I just wanted to make that clear as I could. The last thing I want to talk about today is making sure that you can go ahead and cancel an animation either when the animation is finished or when you hit the ground if it is a jump attack. Because, as you can see here, say I jump and I use my attack too late, then the animation cancels. And you might not want that, and that's fine if you don't. However, it can look weird because, you know, you'll be doing this against the ground, and that's just, you know, not necessarily what you want all the time. So, all you have to do to cancel it or to end it when the animation is done is, first of all, go to your animation, turn off looping. Unless you want to loop your jump attack for any reason, turn it off. That'll make things a lot easier. I keep doing that, my bad. That'll make things a lot easier to handle here. So, literally just turn off looping in the animation, in the state. And then, on your transition back to idle or your transition back to jump, whatever it is you're going to be doing, there's just a few things you're going to have to change. For me, I want to set the priority order back to 0. If I have the ability to return back to idle, then that's probably the one I want to do. The reason I say that is because this priority order basically handles if two, and you can read the description here, but I'll explain it. If two transitions are able to happen at the same time, so basic attack back to idle and basic jump attack, or basic attack back to idle and like basic attack to jump were able to happen at the same time, then you would be able, you know, you would get kind of mismatched functionality. It would be mixed, what you end up getting, and it would determine on some other things that you might have logically in the code. So if you change this priority order, whatever one has the smallest priority order, like for example, their default is 1, so I made this one 0. This one takes precedence. So this one, it will always be the one that occurs first, or the one that gets chosen out of the group of transitions is what I should say. So if you want, when you hit the ground, to definitely go back to idle as opposed to another state, or go back to some landing animation as opposed to another state, you might want to go ahead and change the priority order. That way, yeah, this always happens when it should. Then all we have to do is add some rules in here and we'll be off to a good start. So one rule to ending the jump attack is that we're not in the air anymore. If you hit the ground, you might want to end your attack, so that's one. The other one is this cool thing called get relevant anim time remaining, and it's literally just get relevant anim time remaining. And you'll see And you can actually use pretty much all these depending on how you set it up. I just prefer to use remaining because I think it's the easiest to understand and also explain. And then it'll have the name of the state that you're in. So for me, I'm in basic jump attack, and basically by choosing this node that says right here, it'll tell you the amount of animation time you have left. So if you have 0 left, like this, you can just drag off and say equals equals, and it's a float. Equal equals 0. That's what I got going on right here. If you have 0 seconds left, then your animation finished. So if your animation finished, go ahead and go back to idle. Right? Because otherwise, if we didn't have that part, and I can, whoops. If we didn't have that part, and I can go ahead and take it out. If I could, Alt, there we go. What this will do is you can actually finish your animation, but then you'll stay in your last frame of it, which might be what you want. See how he stays there until he hits the ground? Which might be what you want. But you might not. You might want it to end and go back to the original state when you're finished with your animation, like that. So that's personal preference, but that's how you can do all those things. And it's probably going to be different based on different attacks, to be honest. Like you'll see a lot of, for example, if we're going back to Smash Brothers, their recoveries will often end in the final frame that they were in, right? So in that case, you would not want to do this. However, if you do like the punch attack, you know, just your basic A or B or whatever even, but if you do that in the air, well, then you return to your just falling animation. So you would want to do this right here. So it depends on your scenario, but both are going to be important and both could definitely be useful within the same game, within the same character even. So just keep an eye on that. But there you go. That doing all that stuff will actually make it so you can have multiple jumps, as many as you want. So you could have 2 for regular characters. You'd have characters like Kirby and Jigglypuff, which have a bunch. And then you will have jump attacks. There you go. You will have... You can do crouch attacks the exact same way. Just instead of using is in air, use a boolean called is crouch that you make. And you will also be able to cancel animations on the spot or when you hit the ground. Alright guys, so I think that's a pretty good video for today. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this. I hope this helped you. If it did, please feel free to let me know. Please feel free to hit that nice subscribe button. That helps me out more than literally anything else you can do. So it just makes me know that you're enjoying the video, that it's helping you learn, helping me know that I did a good job on it, which I appreciate. If you do have any issues, we do have a Discord, which I can't put in an iCard for some reason, but I do have in the description. Just scroll down, you'll see Discord. That part, that Discord is for us. It's for everybody to join, for fun, for whatever reasons you want to join. But the biggest thing that we do there is we have a programmer chat, and we can use it to talk to each other, to solve programming problems together, to help each other if there was anything about this tutorial that didn't make sense, or just something you have more questions on, you don't want to type a bunch of YouTube comments and wait for me to respond. There's a bunch of people in the Discord who know programming and who can help, so I would definitely suggest joining it if you have any further questions or if you want any assistance. But other than that, guys, I just want to thank everyone who came to the Twitch stream and followed me and even subbed to me off of the YouTube channel. You guys are awesome. So I just started Twitch streaming mainly with my fiance a few weeks ago, probably like 3 weeks ago, and a lot of you came and showed me support. So thank you so much for coming by and helping us out with that. It's something we've been very interested in doing for a while now and finally got the ability to do it. So if you guys want to check it out, it's twitch.tv/Shawnthebro27, because apparently Shawnthebro was taken, because apparently there's another Shawnthebro in the world, but that's a different thing. So anyway, guys, I'll end it with that. But thank you so much for coming by and watching. Let me know any questions you have. In the next week, we'll be doing the first-person shooter tutorial again. We'll probably be focusing on either changing the weapon, like switching out which weapon you have, or just picking up equipment, something like that. I kind of want to get more familiar with it myself. I've never made a first-person shooter, so I've been doing a lot of research. So, yeah. Join me in the next one, and we'll figure out what we're going to be doing in that episode. Anyway, guys, I'm Shawnthebro. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.